Siomra Beag.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Tiny Room. Welcome back to On Siomra Beag. I am the Michael of Michaelandbenjaminspodcast, Ireland's podcast which is most devoted to providing you weekly content, no matter the quality. I am joined today, as usual, by the man who put the con back in Comic Con. It's Ben.
I'm actually quite happy with that as a title, so I'm going to take it.
That's pretty good, Ben. You're wearing a nice Hawaiian shirt.
It is the best Hawaiian shirt I've ever owned. Coincidentally, the first Hawaiian shirt I've ever owned. Bought for me by a noted friend of the podcast who's also here, Shane. Hi, Shane.
You don't introduce people. I have a whole thing for oh, you son of a... We're also joined today by writer, producer, director, cameraman, and all-around Ben Wrangler. It's Shane.
Thank you for having me back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back in the tiny room, mostly because I drove Mick and Ben here. They were too polite to ask me to leave.
That's mostly true.
Yeah.
Look, on that note, look, everybody, it's Dublin Comic Con weekend. We have been working away at Dublin Comic Con. That's why I'm somewhat losing my voice. Ben is somewhat losing his enthusiasm.
For life in general.
And Shane is losing his reason. So, Ben, do you want to insert the theme music there at any stage?
No.
Theme music for the podcast. We don't actually have any theme music.
That was quite funny. That was, yeah, you got me there. You got me. First time you got me in a while. Ben, we're just back from the Comic Con.
Yeah, we are, yeah.
From day one of Dublin Comic Con.
From day one of Dublin Comic Con, and we were Comic Conning the day away.
Ben, we are not ashamed to admit this, but it is Ireland's best Comic Con.
It is undoubtedly without equal in the Irish Comic Con scene.
Now, Ben, you've never been to the other Comic Con.
Oh, but I trust you too.
Shane, you've been to both.
Yeah, I have. It was great.
Yeah.
If anything, it might this year be a victim of its own success.
Do go on.
The couple of years that we've gone in the past, the queues were shorter.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's gone from strength to strength, naturally the queues got a little bit longer.
Queues get a little bit longer.
A little bit longer. Now, I'm not offering that as a criticism. The staff moved quickly to try and correct it, made sure people weren't stuck outside. But, yeah, it was
A lot of people.
You know, there's nothing they can do about it, but you went in there and after a couple of hours,
A lot of
bit
people.
of a confunk.
A lot of people.
Yeah, there was a severe confunk, but also finding space to actually interview people comfortably became quite a challenge.
That man kept shifting us away from the elevators.
For no reason. We weren't blocking the elevator.
Well, I'm quite large.
It is
But-
always fun to see the North Dublin security staff not entirely sure how to deal with the furries.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks. You're doing all right there, Grant.
We had a
Go on.
we had a fantastic moment of real security guard ego as we were walking into the establishment. Right as it was passed by, we got a "That's a Rog," which turns out is the way that particular security guard said Roger.
Yeah, that's a Rog. That's how you say it. That's
That
how I
is
would say
not-
it.
No.
That's how I would say it. Ben,
No.
Benjamin,
Yeah.
Ben, one of the highlights of the Dublin Comic Con for us was the release of a new comic by friend of the podcast, Barry Keegan.
Yeah, he's got a new one out. It's called The Dark Pool.
It's called The Dark Pool Bell, and we got 2 copies of it, and he signed them both for us, didn't he?
Yes, but I'm afraid one of them was not like the other, Michael.
Ben, we have them here in front of us, don't we? Let's
We
do a
do.
little conceit. Let's have a look at your one, Ben, and we'll open it here on the first page, and it says here, to Ben, from Barry.
Barry.
Yeah, that's it. That's all it says
That's
there.
all it says.
What's it say on my one, though, Ben? We'll just have you read
Let's
it
turn
out.
the page.
Let's just you read it out there. And you read that for us.
Mick, you inspire me. Barry.
Which is brilliant, really, because it was you who discovered Barry's work and introduced it to me, but I think it's...
But in the end, I was left in the cold. It's all right, Barry, I forgive you. It's a fairly decent comic. I've enjoyed it very much. I've already read it, but very good.
Look, Ben, we'll talk about
Barry,
it.
I'd just like to say hi as
Oh, yeah.
you turned to me and said, "You're the other one who appears on it every now and again." Shout out to Barry.
Barry's back. But you should, ladies and gentlemen, pop out, pick up a copy. It's only a £5. He's doing it in 4 installments this time round. And it's, again, a Dublin-centred mythological exploration of modern Ireland.
Well, bloody the last one wasn't bloody Dublin-centred, was it, Ben? It was more about the Port Leash.
Yeah, that too.
You a bit tired?
Yeah,
Mick loves
knackered.
a Port Leash.
I love
Knackered.
Port
Loves
Leash.
a Port Leash.
Mad
Are you a
for
big
Port
Port Leash man?
Mad for Port Leash.
He
Look-
hates it. There's that one weekend he had to drive down there like 3 or 4 times because
remember
of
that?
young people.
Oh, young people are the
They
worst.
people.
Instagram IM'd him instead of phoning him. So Mick drove all the way to Portlaoise, realised these idiots weren't down there for some competition, and had to drive back.
To get them.
I don't think they're fans of the pod. So.
They are.
they?
I think they listen, yeah.
You idiots.
We had an MMA tournament. There was an MMA tournament on. I said, does anybody need a lift, as I'm an adult man with access to a vehicle? No one answered me. And I went down, expecting them all to be there. None of them were there, Ben. So I gave them a ring and said, where are you? And they said, I was waiting for you to pick me up. I sent you a DM.
Oh, they DM'd you?
They DM'd me.
It slid into your DMs?
Nobody slides into someone's DMs to give them vital day-to-day operating instructions.
No, sexually explicit pictures.
Yes,
That's what you slide in for. Not, I need a lift and I need to be there by 6:30.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, accept Shane's friend request on Instagram at your own risk.
That's not great. Anyway, look, let's stop talking about Comic Con now. Benjamin.
Yeah.
One of the things that we saw this week was the trailer for Zombieland 2/Double Tap.
Yeah. Bloody Tallahassee. He's back. Yeah, look, it's the Zombieland universe. It's back. It was a great first movie. Really enjoyed Zombieland 1. It's probably the longest I've ever seen a movie go without a sequel. Apart from all the classic kind of Star Warsy stuff.
Blade Runner.
That's true, actually. Yeah, never mind.
Got you there.
I've got you there.
Okay, well, there goes the wind from my sails.
Yeah, that was like 50 years, wasn't it?
I think it was about that.
Yeah, about 50
There was
years.
1982 to 2049. What was that?
Yeah, 50 years.
Oh, you mean that?
You see what I've done?
I see what you've done there. You've used the literal timeline of the franchise. I see.
Yeah.
Very good, Mick. But yeah, it's taken a while, but it's back with its original cast intact.
And Abigail Breslin is a fully grown woman now.
Very strange, isn't it?
It is very strange. Benjamin, one of the absolute highlight of the first film, Zombieland, was the surprise cameo from William Murray.
Noted thespian William Murray.
Yes. Do you think they're going to do a surprise cameo in this? Or will they feel that if we do a surprise cameo, that's too obvious?
I'm holding out for Barack Obama in the White House because they seem to break into the White House at the beginning of the thing.
Oh.
So I'm holding out for Barack.
His office.
It definitely is.
Beneath his former office.
No.
I mean, the station of that office has been greatly reduced in recent times.
It has. It's all about ratings now.
Yeah. So maybe.
Yeah.
Who would you like to see? Who would you like to see as a surprise cameo? Who is of the caliber of Bill Murray showing up unexpectedly?
Scott Glenn.
Scott Glenn. Shirtless with a Bowie knife. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I'm on board for that. Robert De Niro.
Robert De Niro would be pretty big, wouldn't he?
Robbie D.
Although Robert De Niro is mostly a comic actor now.
Yeah, that's true.
It wouldn't be a massive surprise.
Jack Nicholson.
Maybe.
Not massive surprise, but it'd be really nice to see like a hyped up version of The Rock or something gone full zombie hunter.
Yeah.
That kind of character, like a Vin Diesel, a Rock, a Statham.
That'd be pretty good, actually.
Well, they do have Luke Wilson in it as a counterpart Tallahassee. Did you not see
Luke Wilson?
that? It's Luke Wilson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, but Luke Wilson is in it as counterpart Tallahassee.
Is he the one who says wow?
No, his brother Owen says.
Oh, that's Owen Wilson.
Wow.
Luke is the nice Wilson.
Yeah.
What's wrong with Owen Wilson?
It's very hard to take a man who's had a serious suicide attempt as a comic. You know, once you do that, it kind of gets a bit grim.
It's brandy, isn't it?
bit dark there.
You're not giving anyone a second chance.
Like, we all get a bit sad sometimes. Your job is
this
to not be sad.
Oh,
Wow,
fuck.
this is getting grim. So let's move on from there.
Shane can't come back on the podcast.
Speaking of things that are bloody grim, both of you are famously huge fans of the Warhammer 40,000 universe.
Oh, massive.
Yeah, I have a tattoo of it on my lower back.
Ben, you don't, but you are actually a fan of it, Ben.
Yeah, quite like
My main interaction with the Warhammer, whatever it is, universe, is that time I moved your action figures and you gave out to me.
I was very upset.
You were.
They weren't action figures. They were war game pieces. But yes,
They
you
were
did move
toys,
them.
dolls.
I left Shane and our other friend Dave, who is quite famous, in charge of our house for the weekend while I went on holiday.
Okay.
And came back and he'd put all of my Warhammer men in numerous positions around the house, like on top of the fridge or in the cooker hood, and it was hilarious.
Mick threw a strop.
I did throw a strop because I had spent hundreds of hours painting them, and then they were strewn about the house willy-nilly.
They were carefully placed in hilarious spots.
They were not. It was not hilarious. It was very upsetting.
That sounds very funny. I wish I'd been there.
No, you would have been quite upset because
making a strop sucks the joy right out of her.
I have a bit of a temper.
Oh, dear.
I think that's probably the only time you've ever seen me lose my temper.
Yeah.
Right, anyway, look. Eisenhorn is a thing that happened.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Eisenhorn?
No.
You promised to dress up as a character, did you?
Yes.
Yes.
Eisenhorn, I made a promise with Meg from Without a Stitch that we would do a team-up cosplay.
Is that the thing that Legolas looks for in the Lord of the Rings thing?
No.
They're taking the hobbits to Eisenhorn. Is that what it is?
No, that's Isengard.
Oh, is it Isengard? Is it? Oh. Shame I didn't know the difference there, isn't it?
Yeah, you're the worst. Gregor Eisenhorn is an Imperial Inquisitor.
Classic.
Right, and the Empire in Warhammer 40,000 is this horrible fascistic superstate. And they're they're kind of barely holding humanity together. But is that a good thing? Well, is it?
Well,
probably not. So anyway, Inquisitors have the power. Think like several levels above a judge from Judge Dredd.
Ooh.
They have the power of judge, jury, and executioner, but on worlds.
Ooh. Oh.
They are outside of the Emperor himself, who's actually dead. They are the highest authority in the Empire.
So how does the Emperor work then? But
Well,
is it just a held office?
No, he's a skeleton essentially. He's a skeleton in a life support system, but he's almost certainly dead. But the Empire is ruled in his stead by a labyrinthian council of opposing
Inquisitorial gangs.
That's pretty interesting.
It is a very interesting
What's the
universe.
career path to becoming an Inquisitor?
There are lots of career paths. Some of them are you might be taken
like
on
PLC or
No, well, that's one way. You become an acolyte, and then you become an interrogator, and then you become an inquisitor. It's a kind of apprenticeship.
Ooh. Oh.
Another way is for an inquisitor to kind of pick you up on his adventures as someone who's useful. So often they take people from law enforcement, or people from gangs, or people who have some sort of combat training or infiltration skills. And there are as many methods of inquisiting as there are inquisitors. So some of them are real by the book, the law's the law, you better do what I say, here I come, and they'll bring a company of soldiers and 50 Space Marines with them. The Ultramarines wouldn't work with Inquisitors. They'd be a bit beneath them.
Oh, Ultramarines are the lower ones, so Space Marines are the bigger ones.
No, Ultramarines are just very noble and it takes a lot of oomph to get. Space Marines don't matter for this story. Forget it. We're not talking about Space Marines.
Space Marine, you've lost your demographic there.
I said Space Marines don't matter. Anyway,
Space Marine lives matter.
Oh God, here we go. Yes, so some Space Marines, some Inquisitors, on the other hand, are essentially rogues, and they use the powers of, let's say, chaos, or they'll use alien weapons to fight aliens, and there are other Inquisitors who think that's very radical and dangerous. And Gregor Eisenhorn is
one such.
No, he's an Inquisitor. It's a series of 3 books.
Okay.
And they are the best Warhammer books ever written so far.
And if you wanted to get into those, how much would you need to know about the Warhammer universe?
One of the reasons that they're the best Warhammer books ever written is that not very much. Because unlike a lot of Warhammer fiction, which is entirely dependent on a love for the setting. Because if you don't love the setting, how invested are you going to be in a war book about Space Marines fighting more evil Space Marines?
Not very.
Whereas Gregor Eisenhorn is a character. He's a character with motivation. No, not like he's a bit of a lad. Not he's like not the classic. You have what is it? What the classic? You are a character. You don't have any. Not in that type of character.
Is that classic?
Is that Pulp Fiction? Yeah, that's Pulp Fiction.
Harvey Keitel's.
He says it to his nephew.
No, the junkyard owning lady.
Oh yeah. What are we talking about? Yes, Gregor Eisenhorn is a character. He has some of the trappings of Warhammer excess, like in the early goings in the first book, he's captured and tortured, and his facial nerves are paralyzed, so he literally can't smile. So it's grim. It's grim and gritty, but it's the story of his descent from a kind of paragon of imperial law. The rules are the rules, into a radical threat to exactly, and it's it's a pretty good series of books. And he has a pretty interesting ragtag bunch of followers who come and go during his career.
Mm-hmm.
And they, in a lot of ways, represent... For example, he teams up with a guy called Fissig. It's been a while since I've read it. And Fissig is an Arbites. He's essentially a policeman. But he's a policeman on a planetary scale. And he teams up with him in his early days. And as he gets more and more radical, his relationship with him deteriorates, while his relationship with some of the more radical acolytes he picks up changes. And it's very interesting. It's actually a pretty good series of books, not dependent on having to like Warhammer. Now, if you hate Warhammer, this probably won't turn you around on it.
Probably not.
But it's still good, though. And the big news is it's getting a bloody TV series.
What?
What?
Listeners, you thought Mick was just going to go on a bit for about Warhammer. But there was a point.
There was Did you see there's a point there?
Yeah.
So it's getting a bloody TV series. It's going to be the first kind of major Warhammer universe TV series. And it's exactly the right thing to adapt.
Who's making it?
I don't know who's making it.
That could have been a thing to research.
I know, but we've been at Comic Con all day.
We have, and it didn't come up in
Anybody tipped for a lead?
No, I don't think so. Nobody's tipped for a lead, but the story of Eisenhorn, the Eisenhorn trilogy of books, is a man's lifetime, his career. So he starts young and virile, and he finishes as this wizened old fool.
Who would you like to
Carl Urban.
Huh?
Carl Urban. I just want Carl Urban and everything.
Fair enough.
In a Hawaiian shirt.
Fair enough.
And people are like, what is this shirt you're wearing? It doesn't seem very appropriate to the universe. And you'll go, I don't know what it is, mate. I thought it's just my flipping Hawaiian shirt. I don't fucking care what you fucking think about my shirt, mate. I'll fucking wear this shirt if I want, mate.
Ladies and gentlemen, Helen Mirren has wandered her way in again. Like a stray cat.
Helen, I'll fucking wear whatever fucking shirt I want, mate. I'm going to come here and investigate all your crimes, innit? That's pretty good.
So I'm going to segue for him because he's having a sip of water there. But basically, that got us thinking about the brand new series starring Carl Urban in a Hawaiian shirt going, fuck, which is The Boys on Amazon Prime. Nick, go on.
I don't know if I was finished talking about Eisenhorn.
Right, go on back to Eisenhorn.
No, all right, look, you've done your transition. Yes, Ben, we have we've an unusual situation here. Between the three of us,
Yes.
in many ways, like a triangle is the strongest shape in nature.
What?
That's
why honeycombs are triangle shaped.
Yeah, he has you there. No, you're thinking of Toblerones, I think.
Yeah, but they have honey as an ingredient.
Yeah, so like the triangle, the strongest shape in nature, we are each going to support each other's failings. So, because Ben, you've read the vast majority of the comic books.
All of them.
You've read all of the comics.
Yeah.
Shane, you've read none of the comics.
I have not.
But you've seen all of the TV series.
I have.
Ben, you've seen none of the TV series.
Yes.
And I've seen about half of the TV series and read about half of the comics.
We are so ready for
we
a
are
table
nature's
quiz.
best shape.
we're like the strongest shape in nature, the triangle. That's why you see so many triangle-shaped things naturally occurring in the world.
In like orchestras.
Or love.
Yeah.
Famously love triangles.
Famously.
Jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
The triangle choke.
Of course. Mm-hmm. Of course, the triangle choke. So relevant.
So anyway, look. Shane, we've seen the show. We'll get back to Ben in a minute.
Go on. Off you go.
We've seen the show, Ben. Shane. Very briefly, speaking as a man who hasn't read the comics, give us a spoiler light version of what is it?
Okay. So it is a world in which superheroes exist.
Yes.
And from the outside, if you're just a regular punter in the universe, you're like, superheroes, that's great. Every now and again you see them, but they might show up at your Comic Con or your like Oxygen Music Festival or any of that.
Your electric picnic.
They'll sign autographs, they'll pose for selfies. They are sort of corporate sponsored, corporate owned.
Yeah.
So there's like a cinematic universe featuring them and their adventures.
That's true. I've seen it.
Reasonably speaking, if you were involved in a large scale crime, you could expect them to show up and stop it.
Yeah.
And then after that, they'll hang around. But
for selfies.
Yeah, for selfies, for publicity.
Mm-hmm.
But, and here's the thing that will be made clear in the trailer, they're dicks.
They're all dicks.
Absolute dicks.
Every single one of them.
So that's the setup, that's the premise.
Like celebrities.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like that time I heard Catherine Thomas give out about some photographer.
Who's Catherine Thomas?
She did a travel show on RTE. I doubt she's
So she's not a real celebrity.
But it'd be great if this is what got the podcast sucked into some sort of,
RTE scandal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So, yeah, they're dicks. This world has Karl Urban, who shows up as a bit of a mysterious figure.
Mm-hmm.
He has at some point in his past been wronged by a celebrity.
Yeah.
And he meets essentially the centre of this story, Huey, whose girlfriend in the first 20 minutes of the first episode gets exploded.
Yes.
You can see that in the trailer.
Very viscerally.
Yeah, it's brilliantly horrible.
One of the most visceral human body explosions I've ever seen on a television program.
It is aggressive. Shane and I were speaking to Geek and Son Pod over the thing, and the younger side of the Geek and Son Pod, the son of Geek and Son, said, "Oh, we'll have to watch that." And I turned around and said, "No.
Oh, no.
No, you are not allowed to watch that." So I apologise for being so abrupt with the son of Geek and Son.
Somebody has to lay down the law.
But really, not a great show. And his father was very glad to see that I was not encouraging his son to watch that horrible.
Geek and Son podcast is a family podcast.
It's a family podcast.
The boys has no place in that. No. So Karl Urban shows up ostensibly to help Huey. Mm-hmm. He presents himself as a law enforcement agent and sets about going after these people where other law enforcement agencies and the mainstream media have no interest in prosecuting or highlighting this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And they go on a bit of an adventure. It becomes apparent fairly shortly that Karl Urban is a bit of a rogue element, and he's not a law enforcement agent. And the adventure spirals from there.
And Shane, it's very, very, very good.
It is. Now, it's very violent.
It's very violent.
My good lady friend watched most of it from between her fingers. Anytime there was bloodshed or somebody bashing a head off like a urinal in a toilet, or somebody getting exploded,
or a smack of a pry bar,
anything like that. Anyone getting exploded by like C4 placed internally.
Yes.
Like she wasn't into it.
Not her
cup of tea. And she turned to me and she said, "Shane, you dragged your heels on watching Chernobyl because it was so bleak." And I was like, "But that's because Chernobyl wasn't really that funny."
It had its moments.
Yeah, The Boys is bleak and it's aggressive, and the violence is hilarious. If you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it is comic book violence.
It is.
It's not awful. It's not the type of thing that's going to make someone who's kind of immune to comic book violence go, "Oh, that's a bit much."
Yeah.
It's almost entirely quite comical.
It is.
In its extremeness. But, I mean, it's a great series.
Yeah.
It's the traditional phrase is start to finish, it's brilliant. But start to about midway to where I've seen, it's brilliant.
It is. It's brilliant. Strong performances by everyone. What's his name? Chase, that plays Homelander. My God, he steals every scene he's in. He's just a colossal prick. He's brilliant to watch.
One of the things about it, sorry Ben, I'm going to cut across you there. One of the things about it is there are a lot of uses of the C-bomb, which is kind of the only word we've banned on the podcast.
Except that you use it every time you...
I have never said it, even when I'm doing my Karl Urban impression, my
Helen Mirren impression.
I have never said it. I've never said it.
Cook, he has said he's like really danced right up to that line.
Last week I called you cook because I started the word and I'm not saying that word on the podcast.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Now everyone clearly knows what word we mean.
Yeah, and
so let's say no more about it.
It drops like raindrops.
Oh, non-stop.
And Karl Urban delivers it just brilliantly.
With relish. Like a bloody spicy sauce.
In an accent which, if you listen to last week's Helen Mirren impersonation by Mick, indistinguishable from that.
Or this week's where I just did my Karl Urban impression.
Yeah, indistinguishable.
Now,
pure London.
Ben.
Yes.
It's pure London, innit? I'm fucking stuck in this clink, you cuck. See, I got you again. What are we talking about? Ben, you famously, among our couple of hundred listeners, hated the comic book.
Now, I didn't hate the comic book originally. We should be very clear on that, Michael.
You used to be a lot edgier, though.
Oh, I was a real edgelord once upon a time, Michael. Interestingly,
Frosted tips on his hair.
Oh, so many frosty tips. Interestingly,
Hawaiian shirt and duster jacket.
no, that's from now on. I'm going back to my edgy roots.
It should be noted that Ben had to dress up as Carl Urban from The Boys today for Comic Con.
Take a look at the Instagram. It's up there on a story at the minute. We should be in the 24-hour window by the time this drops.
No, we won't.
Well, we'll put it up on the pod this evening. Then we'll stick it up on the gram. But it's interesting because you two love the show very much. It is now Amazon's most popular show ever.
Yes.
It has been their
That makes
most.
it sound like we're the ones who've made it Amazon's
Well,
most
we
popular
are.
show.
Well,
but
you are, because through your relentless recommendations, it's risen to the top.
Hashtag influencers.
Hashtag influencers, baby. Yeah, so originally I bought the comic when I was much younger because I thought it was great. I thought it was a great send-up of the superhero universe. I probably would have been around 15, 16 when I first read it. And Volume 1 was very good, very interesting storyline, something new that I hadn't seen before. This idea that superheroes were real dickbags. I hadn't read Watchmen at that point, so I wasn't really used to this kind of postmodern idea of deconstructing what a hero really is and can a hero be flawed, etc., etc. And I guess Garth Ennis just decided, yes, they absolutely can. In fact, if you had that much power, you probably would be a tremendous dickbag.
I'd be worse.
I think
Yeah.
you would.
Yeah. They could have just called it Gareth Ennis's I Hate Superheroes.
Yeah, and it really is that. Garth Ennis and Derek Robertson are the two that started the series in 2006, which I would have been just 15.
so edgy.
Yeah, so much edge. I used to have spiky hair.
What year were you born in?
I was born in 1991.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're born on there.
I did my junior cert that year, you see, so I remember. I have key milestones for certain dates. And yeah, so I would have been around 15, and I read this and I thought it was great. And then slowly, as the series progressed, I guess it was one of these things. We had this conversation a little bit earlier, Shane, about Butcher's character, where he's so edgy at the beginning, and then they kind of ease off as it goes along, and it loses some of the oomph.
Yeah, I don't know if they ease off, or like he's so edgy at the beginning and it's such a shock to see it, especially as Mick said, the C word that we're all afraid to say. Just drop.
Yeah.
Once you're 4 or 5 episodes into that, he might still be just as edgy, but you've kind of conditioned
You've
yourself
developed an
to it.
immunity to it.
Yeah, so I think Garth Ennis was basically terrified of this ever happening, and just pushed that envelope more and more and more. And what was originally collateral damage, so heroes used to collide into pedestrians on occasion.
They'd run through your girlfriend.
They'd run through your girlfriend. They might not save you in time. They might not be bothered to save you, which is admittedly very narcissistic. But then it turned into something new, where it became one of the scenes that made me kind of give up on the comic is a scene where Starlight,
Star-Lord.
Starlight, I think is her name, isn't it? Or
Starfire.
something like that. Anyway, the female character that joins the Seven, which is the big superhero league mocking Justice League and etc., is brought into a meeting with all the male members of the Seven, and they then rape her repeatedly to see how much she can take. And it's just a really harrowing comic book scene to read, and it's not very pleasant. And that kind of continued then. They moved into the field of molesting children and stuff like that, and just kept pushing that envelope again and again and again and again and again. And the only decent thing about the entire arc, and I read it out of a sheer sense of the need for completion, was Butcher. Butcher was probably I am very
Ben's
tired.
admitted something there.
Oh yeah, that's very bad.
I am
So in Ben's
very
previous
tired.
review of this, he described it as mean-spirited.
Yeah.
And I think the TV show sidesteps that.
This is what I would like to talk about this show, is that I think the constraints placed upon this show by network television, and I'm going to preface this by saying, if you've not read the comic, you would probably be hard-pressed to imagine that the resulting show has been restrained because it's so violent and vulgar.
Yeah.
But it's nothing compared to the meanness of the comic.
Yeah.
And the fact that it has had to be constrained that much has resulted in a much better
much more enjoyable piece of pop culture.
Yes,
Like, I
exactly.
think it makes the point it sets out to make.
Mm.
You
It
know,
does.
it's about corporations, it's about privacy, it's about all of that stuff. And it doesn't lose anything from what you've said about the comic. I haven't read it.
I've read some of it.
Yeah.
I didn't like it.
See? Proved a point there, listeners. It's a good TV show.
I'm looking forward to watching it. I will be watching it this evening as I kind of slowly decompress from a day of Comic-Conning.
The kind of the one of the major changes in this adaptation, or adaptation as I used to say, is the Starfire thing. Starlight. That's
The
it.
names are great as well, to be fair. They're just a little bit
Homelander
goofy.
is great.
They're a little
Like,
bit like
They've got their Aquaman character, but they call him the Deep. And it's just stupid. They've got their Invisible Man character. They call him Translucent.
fucking translucent doesn't even fucking mean invisible, you idiot. It means semi-transparent.
It's brilliant. All of the names are slightly stupid.
Yeah, it's very good. What was I saying? The Starlight thing is a really key change in the comic. And Ben, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong here. She is recruited to the Seven because they want to sexually humiliate her.
Yes, she is seen as too hopeful by the other heroes. She's too naive, and she deserves to have that taken away for some reason.
And they continually perform degrading acts on her and film them, and her costume gets more and more revealing as lots of stuff like that happens. Whereas in the TV show, it's much more of a Me Too thing. She gets basically the Hollywood treatment.
She does.
It's
Like, her character, the uniform changes and it becomes more sexualized and stuff like that, but it's for marketing reasons.
yeah,
It's not because of an inherent meanness of the characters. The difference is, rather than being out and out evil, they're dicks. They're all powerful dicks. There's nobody who has given them a rap on the knuckles. There's nobody to keep them in line. Society's rules don't apply to them, so why would they behave by them?
In the comic, her costume is changed for marketing reasons as well, and it's the first point where she stands up to them. But then there's an interesting scene in that where the Homelander tries to make sure she wears the costume. He steps in, and in the comic, he never directly expresses his aggression. What he does is he does it with this big grin, as if he's doing everyone a favor, and it's very imposing as a comic book character. But then Maeve steps in, and Maeve is the female, the Wonder Woman equivalent in this universe, and she says, leave her alone. And he won't pick on Maeve, because Maeve might be able to match him, but he doesn't know, because he's never really tested himself against the other three. So it's an interesting moment. It's the only time she raises a finger, and it's to do with that marketing meeting. But there is that inherent meanness again in the Homelander, where he just wants to degrade her because she's so hopeful and optimistic and kind of, I suppose, idealistic, and he just wants to strip that away. And it's really odd.
Look, it's very interesting. It's a good show. I strongly recommend that people watch it because it's a very good show, which is very interesting and enjoyable.
In years to come, you're going to look back on Ben's costume from today and go, man, he fucking nailed that.
He did. He really nailed it. I mean, the one thing you can say about Ben is he's no Karl Urban.
No.
But today,
He could have been.
he could have been.
Today, Michael, I'm going to be Karl Urban.
Okay, yeah. And he was. Well done, Ben.
Thanks, lads. It's very nice of you.
He got a bit sour towards the end of the day.
I was very grumpy.
I thought that so far this year, The Boys is my favourite comic book adaptation.
That smacks of a segue, Michael.
It was a segue, Ben, because we're going to talk about other adaptations. That's what we're talking about today. We're talking about adaptations. But because, like I said, I think that The Boys is the best comic book adaptation so far this year. A lot of comic book movies and TV shows are not adaptations in the strictest sense. No. In that, let's say, for example, the TV show Legion, which I also enjoy, but haven't managed to finish this season yet. I don't consider that an adaptation.
No.
Because they've taken the character and made a TV show about him. They haven't, unlike The Boys, basically adapted the storyline. Are you with me there?
Yes. Yeah.
So, The Boys, because of the constraints of what it is, in my opinion, the best comic book to screen adaptation of all time. I'm not saying it's the best comic book product of all time. I'm saying it's the biggest improvement between the original material and the end result.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's the criteria
That's
we're
what I'm
assessing
talking
today.
about. Let's talk about, for example, the film Watchmen.
Yes.
That is an incredible an incredibly faithful adaptation
Yes.
of the source material, to the point it's almost shot for shot.
Almost
Shot for shot. But the adaptation, the taking it to the big screen, doesn't add anything to it.
No.
It doesn't improve upon it in any way.
No.
So what
Doesn't
I'm asking,
make it any more relevant for the time that it's being viewed in now versus the time it was first published.
personally, I prefer the twist of the movie to the comic book.
Yeah,
Yes.
a little bit cleaner.
I
It's a bit of an
much-
editing
much
choice
better,
more than
yeah.
anything else.
I really enjoyed and it also takes Dr. Manhattan out of the picture very, very well. It's very good. I'm not full of hope for whatever the After Watchmen series is
The
called.
HBO series.
Yeah, what's it called?
Watchmen.
Is it?
Yeah, and it has a little tag on thing. I think the first one is Watchmen and this one is Watchman or something.
Watch
like that.
People.
Watch non-gender conforming. Binary. Non-binary.
That's what I'm talking about. We're talking today about whether adaptations improve upon the source material.
Yes.
Does anybody have anything they would like to bring up first?
No, Mick, I think we're all out of ideas.
Great, I have a little notebook here. Shane, you son of a bitch, you've been watching the TV show Preacher. Does this fall into the category? Get back in here, you.
It does.
We do a little snuggle.
Do I think it's any better? First, where does it fall into the category?
Yeah.
Naturally, Preacher's what, 25, 30 years old?
And the
It's
rest
getting
came out
there,
in the
yeah.
90s, yeah.
So
there.
Came out in the 90s.
you're looking at it like, even in the very start, the opening episode of Preacher, where the spirit comes down and it bounces from religious leader to religious leader, and the ways that's communicated in the different religions that are out there.
Is this the TV show or the comic?
TV show.
Okay.
When that comes down and bounces around, like bounces from Tom Cruise, explodes him, the way it's broadcast.
Is Tom Cruise in it?
He
He's
died.
not.
No, it's a deep fake.
Deep fake.
It's a deep fake.
But
fake.
Tom Cruise is like, it's just a thing that's running in the news in the background.
It's a Scientology thing.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
Because he's a Scientology.
We met the Scientologists today.
Stop.
That's that.
Stop
Remember
it.
when we met them?
Stop. We're literally gonna get
They seemed
doxed.
nice.
They are going to dox us. Stop
seemed
it.
nice, that's all I'm
Stop
saying.
it.
Our legal department is painfully under budgeted.
It's me pulling my hair out. Please
So-
don't.
You've different stuff, like the stuff that was floating around in Preacher.
They were at the con.
No, just stop.
The way the comic was written, it was, you had like a Vietnam was the big influence there.
Because Vietnam was quite recent.
Yeah, the Preacher TV show doesn't
that
have
time.
that. It's the
Yeah.
like the it plays to a different kind of American consciousness now, like that kind of setting. Levels of crime, the type of crime, big business, all those kind of things are slightly different now. They're advanced. The kind of thing that you were looking at back when the comic first came out probably seems like quite tame to the actual reality. So it's had to be upped. Story has been slightly changed. The relationship with religion, how religion fits into society, how it's polarized people, separated communities, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's
All
much
of
more
that-
now than it was 30
Yeah.
years ago.
Because like you could be different faiths and live in, relative proximity, and it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
It didn't influence your voting pattern as much as it would now.
It
That
wasn't
kind of
the
thing.
hot button issue it has
Yeah.
become.
Hot
So-
potato.
The adaptation that we're looking at now on TV is, it takes into account a lot of that, and it does a very good job. It satirizes a lot of that kind of thing, how all of that fits together, media, religion, voting, all of that kind of stuff. However, it's not as good a linear story as the comic,
No.
as far as I'm concerned.
Oh,
The characters that I love about the comic, whose name I've forgotten,
Jesse Custer.
I love Jesse
Jesse
Custer.
Custer, Tulip, Cassidy,
Hair Star.
Josie.
Josie. I love Josie.
Josie.
Who's Josie?
He's
For
the
the
blonde
listeners.
henchman of Jesse Custer's demonic Anne.
Angelique.
Yeah.
No, that's
Grandmother?
where he lives. His grandmother, his
Yeah.
grandmother.
And
Great
he's
grandmother.
He is a hard as nails enforcer for this. Doesn't really believe in the cause, but he just likes hurting people.
Oh, yeah.
He's a good old boy.
I know people like
Yeah.
that.
At one point in the comic, he beats a gorilla to death, and then beats
Gorilla-
the man to death who made him fight the gorilla.
Gorillas are strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And like great scene where he eventually has a face to face with Jesse Custer, and Jesse Custer, who he's been tormented his entire life, lays him out, you know, is winning this fight. And like as he's losing, as he's about to die, his last utterance is, "I'm proud of you, boy."
Oh, good.
It's great quality Western kind of movie.
For anyone who doesn't know Shane, that's right in Shane's.
Yeah,
that hits Shane right where he lives.
Oh,
It's right up his alleyway. You know
I
what I'm saying?
fired my 6-gun into the air at that
I
moment.
bet you did. Anyway.
So yeah, pros and cons to Preacher, but I'd be 50-50. It wouldn't be the clear-cut case of The Boys making it definitively better. Making it relevant, but maybe muddying the waters a bit in terms of the story and having to serialise and drag a couple of series out of it.
Well, are you dragging a couple of series out of it though?
Oh,
I mean,
they
there's
are.
like
They
14
are.
or
They
15 volumes of that comic, aren't there?
There was 7.
There were
Is that all?
7. Yeah, just 7.
Just 7. Wow.
They are dragging it out though.
Because The Walking Dead finished today and last week, and it reached 32 volumes.
Should it have though?
Yeah, the Walking Dead comic is great.
Is it still great?
It's still great, and
Okay.
it ended great. There, in a series of 32 collected editions, 170, 180 odd single issues. Wow. There are, of course, peaks and troughs of quality and excitement, but it's a really good example of where an adaptation hasn't really added anything to it. The adaptation of that just skips from. It basically is boring because it spends seasons building up to big things from the comics.
Yeah, it's trying to be too on the money with the adaptation.
And of the 32 paperbacks of The Walking Dead that I have there on that shelf, Shane, probably 6 or 7 of them are really boring. But you'll forgive a boring trade paperback for its character development and its world building and its moving the plot forward a lot more than you forgive 8 hours of television.
Yeah.
8 hours of television that is setting a scene for something shocking to happen is not like a slightly boring half an hour read.
But if you've had to watch, say, 6 hours of television that's all built up and you're not particularly interested in it, and then the 2-hour like finale of that is a letdown, oh man, that just gets to you.
It gets to you. I have been no fan of the Walking Dead TV series for quite a while. I made it through the first 3 or 4 seasons.
When it first came out, it was great. You know, it was one of those things where if you were into the comic books or something like that, like when you see a sci-fi trope or something appear in mainstream media, you're looking at it and you're like, they're brilliant. And especially if you're an audience member who hasn't seen that before because you're not familiar with the sci-fi and the comics and all the rest, you're like, that's so original, that's so fresh. Walking Dead brought that right out there. They did a great job of that. So people who maybe saw it and who had been reading along like Mick, not that shocked, but everyone else, like, it was fresh, it was interesting, it was a great story. You know,
wait to see zombies.
Yeah.
Even for me, even for Walking Dead readers, the first few years of the Walking Dead TV show were quite interesting because, like we were saying, it added some things, it twisted other things, and it seemed hopeful. Like, this might go a different way from the comic, but nah, it's just boring. It's just boring. It's just people being boring.
God, real boring.
Giving out to each other. And like, we're not staying here with you, Rick, you son of a bitch. And Rick going, oh, God, if I could stay here with me, you son of a bitch. Yeah,
Is he from Wales?
I think he's from Wales. Yeah,
It
no,
would have
he's
been
from...
so much better if you'd done it in a Welsh accent.
Carl, we got to get back out of here. We're going to get away from the zombies.
I would have watched 7 seasons of that.
Get down to the bloody coast. We get in the lighthouse and we close up all the doors. That's pretty good Welsh, isn't it? It's a pretty good Welshman. So look, is there any other...
Do you know any good zombie adaptations, Michael, more in keeping with our theme?
No, look, we've just picked...
that wasn't a great
great example. We've picked World War Z.
All right, okay, never mind. Ignore that.
Speaking of a pop culture property, we've picked World War Z to have a little bit of a bitch and moan about. And it's not their fault. I mean, God bless Brad Pitt. He tried to make a cash-in movie about zombies, and he picked a great book that tells a couple of different stories in an oral history type of way that sets a scene and sets a tone, but doesn't culminate in anything.
No, it's not a narrative.
No, there's nothing like that.
It's a couple of little narratives.
They're vignettes.
Yeah.
But like, even those little narratives, they don't... Like, one of them, say the sniper who was in the Battle of Yonkers or whatever it was, his narrative is that he was at the Battle of Yonkers, this is how they trained them, they had psychologists and stuff there, and now he gets a bit jittery still.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Like, the Battle of Yonkers happened. He didn't die in it. It didn't end the war. It didn't do anything. There was no triumphant moment or anything like that. He still gets jittery. The Russian woman who's in some sort of baby factory to rebuild the Russian Empire or whatever, that's it. You know?
The North Koreans took out their teeth.
Yeah, and disappeared.
Yeah, that's it.
The Hermit Kingdom. Nobody's heard from them.
They took out the zombies' teeth? They took out
No,
their own teeth?
teeth.
As soon as zombies were announced, all the North Koreans pulled all their teeth to prevent the spread of zombies. And then they went dark.
It's pretty clever.
It's interesting.
And like, you've great little bits like this, but there's no one story. There's no... It's not like, here, you know, here's the mad dentist who made all the North Koreans take out their teeth and his fight for, you know...
Getting rid of teeth.
Yeah. We'll call him the Tooth Fairy. But, yeah. There's none of that. So Brad Pitt came along and wanted to cash in on the zombie craze. So they just made a story about, was he a doctor? Or the
Traveling around
best
the world.
zombie photographer they'd ever seen?
You're the best goddamn... What was he?
Zombie
He was
photographer.
a doctor of
Was he a
some
photographer?
kind.
I think he was a photographer.
Is he a photographer?
Wasn't he a photographer? Did he get mixed up in it by accident?
I don't know.
Was he in Godzilla too?
No, you're thinking of Chad Kyleman.
Kyle Chadman?
Yeah, Kyle Chandler. Yeah, Chad Kyleman. You're the best goddamn animal photographer in this world, and we need you to help find Godzilla. My pronunciation's gone all wonky. Godzilla. What else is good? What else is good adaptations? Look, we also have June over there.
Yeah.
The book June. Not the month of June, the book June.
In the merry month of May. Sorry, go on.
That is a weird adaptation.
It is. There's been a couple.
June.
There was
Yes.
that sci-fi miniseries. There was the... What's his name?
David Lynch.
David Lynch. The singy, weirding way.
Bloody
That was
silver
great.
pants.
That had Sting.
Sting.
It did have Sting. Not much of Sting, though.
No, not as much as you'd like.
Could you have used more Sting?
You could have used more Sting. He had no shirt on for a large part of it.
Yeah.
But that was a weird adaptation. A lot of that changed
It did.
quite a lot. But I would argue not enough.
But see, with
Go on.
Dune is a sprawling...
June, the
Dune.
book June.
Yeah. Dune. We're going to pronounce that with a D because that's how it's spelled. It's going to upset Nick.
Yep.
You alright?
No.
Do you want to take a break?
So
You sure?
the book is a bit sprawling, bit world building.
It
Spends
is.
a lot of time building a
about-
setting.
Talking about bloody ecosystems.
Yeah, and
Famously
customs
Frank Herbert.
and
Yeah.
religion and the importance of our religion and a messiah narrative and stuff like that. And
And spice.
there's only so much of your movie that you can really dedicate to that before the studio won't give you any money.
Yeah. You're not getting any more money, David Lynch.
Yeah, so you have,
Fucking
to,
Davy L.
you have to find a way to, cut some of that out.
Yeah. The weirding way in the book is just karate.
Yeah.
But they changed it in the film to be a way of using your voice to shoot lasers.
Yeah.
But not lasers, because lasers will make the shields explode.
Yeah, you can't use
I've
your
never
las
seen
guns.
this movie.
Have
and
you
it's-
never
it's
read
never-
the book June or seen
Never
the
read.
film
Of course
June?
not. Why would I?
He's too young.
Why would I do that?
He's so
I'm outside
young.
the bracket.
They are both very good.
I'm sure they are.
Ben, the book June is an absolute flippin' classic,
Yes.
and you should read it.
Very big.
It's not that big. There it is there. Look, you could easily pick it up with one hand. You can do 100 push-ups at a time.
You
The
could pick it up
text
with
is
one hand.
very small.
It's small text, Ben, but I mean, it's all words you're familiar with, except maybe Fremen
Fremen is one I'll have to learn.
and Harkonnens.
Are you optimistic for the Denis Villeneuve?
I'm always optimistic for Denis Villeneuve.
He makes great fucking films, doesn't he?
He did a very good adaptation of the short story, the story of your life, into the film Arrival.
My Life.
That's the name of the book.
Oh, I thought you were talking about
No,
My
it
Life.
wasn't
I was
about
like,
you,
no,
the
Arrival
life
wasn't
of
based
you.
on me, no.
Benjamin Colby. Because that'd be bloody...
Be
It's
a
just full of ups and
boring
downs.
fucking book, wouldn't it?
Full of ups and downs and getting
Just a very
cranky at
moody
Comic-Con.
Comic-Con fucking narrative. All right, ladies and gentlemen, on that gem of an... do we want to wrap it up?
Go on, yeah, go
Do we
ahead.
wanna go-
Oh, yeah, it's a bit mono... What do you
What do you want to go for?
go on, go for it.
Keep going.
Keep going.
Just spin our wheel a bit. Talk about Hellboy. You love talking about Hellboy.
Look, it was a shit adaptation.
I liked Hellboy too. I thought it was great.
Hellboy. Wait, Golden Army.
Yeah.
Hellboy to the Golden Army, though, was a Guillermo del Toro original.
We're talking about bloody David Marshall. Neil Marshall.
I thought we all
Neil
agreed
Marshall.
never to talk about that again.
No, we agreed that today with the lady at the con.
Yeah.
We didn't agree it in the tiny room.
But that's kind of like... we're not wrapping it up. All right, that's kind of like the...
He brought it back.
That's kind of like what we were talking about earlier with Legion. None of those are really adaptations of a Hellboy story. They're taking the character and putting him in a new piece of media.
Yeah.
Which throws us back to something, Shane, you said earlier about
Marvel.
Go on. Do you want to make that statement?
Yeah, I looked at, the Marvel comics, and they'll take a movie and they'll be like, all right, we're going to do the Infinity War thing.
Right.
And they'll take all of the good stuff.
Right.
And then just get rid of all the shit that, fans at the time went, that's a bit stupid. That
So
makes no sense.
Your theory is that all of the Marvel movies are better adaptations than the material that they come from.
In many cases, yes.
I haven't read all the material, so I won't say that definitively in case we get all that hate mail.
Safe.
Yeah.
He'd be a much better co-host. He never puts his foot in his mouth. Look at that.
No, he did. He says that thing about suicide.
Oh, yeah, shameful.
That was a personal opinion.
Talk about Marvel films, quick.
So they take the stories, they adapt them,
Yeah.
they get rid of the stuff that doesn't work or that was bulky or that, in hindsight, when you had to go back and do a retcon or something like that, didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You tell a pretty decent linear story.
I would argue that they go so far in their adaptation that they're not adaptations.
Oh, interesting.
Ben, tell us about the Age of Ultron.
Oh, bloody Age of Ultron is very messy. Jesus. The Age of Ultron is not at all an adaptation. He's a very one of the biggest jumps I think in Age of Ultron is the characterization of Ultron himself. Ultron is a very Terminator-like character in the comic books. And he was
the direction they gave David Spade, and then he just went,
Yeah,
I'm going to play it a bit campy.
I'm going to play a bit campy.
wasn't David Spade. That's the guy from comedy. He was
Yeah.
James Spader.
James Spader.
David Spade.
David Spade.
Would have been quite good.
That would have been. I would have watched that.
We get him to do a re-edit.
Yeah, that'd be very good.
In the comic books, Hank Pym has been becoming steadily more and more unhinged as time went by. He also went through that famous arc where he beat Janet Van Dyne.
He hit her once. Now, I'm not saying...
Taking a stance there.
No. Oh, God, this is like the suicide thing,
Hashtag
yeah.
just a minute.
If I remember this correctly, which I'm now not sure I do.
Fuck.
Hashtag just 1 minute there, love.
Yeah, just let me check this for a second. I don't think Hank Pym was ever shown as a wife beater.
Outside of the Ultimate Universe, probably
Outside of the Ultimate Universe, he was definitely an abusive husband. But I think there was one comic where he hit her. And obviously that's unforgivable. But they do live in a universe where superheroes are always hitting each other.
They do.
Yeah, okay. The rules are slightly different.
You know what I
Are they all
mean?
married to each other,
A lot of them are.
That's true, actually. All right, fair enough. But
Anyway,
in the downward trajectory of Hank Pym, in the fall of Hank Pym,
I'm not defending.
I know.
People
I didn't
hitting
say
their
you were.
wives.
I didn't say you were. I didn't open my mouth.
Nick,
I'm
draw the
not
line
touching
at
it.
a good
No, fuck. We should have just wrapped this up.
Yeah, I should have wrapped it up there 5 minutes ago.
But to finish the point, he was on a downward spiral and he created this robot, this law-keeping robot, Ultron, and that was his new program and his new way to kind of defend the world. He then became Yellow Jacket, which was this kind of egomaniacal, hard-hitting, no fuss, no muss, rules must be adhered to kind of version of him. And it was just a bit mental and a bit intense, and obviously that was changed massively.
But hold on a second.
In Age of Ultron.
What you've missed out on, the fact, is that in the comic Age of Ultron, it's an Age of Ultron. Ultron takes over the world.
Oh yeah, okay.
And the world is controlled by Ultron bots. The whole world, for a very long period of time. It's a literal Age of Ultron. And what's happened in the movie Age of Ultron is someone said, that's a pretty good name, actually. I think we'll take that
Let's
name.
take that, yeah.
We won't take the story, though, because the story's a load of shite. We'll just take the bloody name. We'll just take the little name and put it on our film.
The story's a load of shite.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, but I just wouldn't call it an adaptation.
Okay.
It's just they've taken the name.
Nicked a
I
good
think
name.
if you widen your Marvel scope and then see how poor a job they've done with the X-Men movies, because like you've pointed out before, they won't just put them in the costumes and give people what they want. They do a story.
A lot of the
do a
problem-
Dark Phoenix story.
Yeah,
They
just
won't.
adapt the bloody thing.
Yeah. You know?
But they won't do it.
They won't, though.
Do you want to do your little
The
North Dublin
MCU
voice?
go
and-
halfway there. X-Men movies refuse to go even a little bit towards adapting anything.
Go on, give us your
MCU
North
go
Dublin
halfway
elevator
there,
pitch.
and Mick's about to do a voice.
I'm not going to do a voice.
Yes,
I don't
yeah.
even know what you mean.
You just did a little, you're like that there, and I'm like,
Just take that name there and put on your little film and do a lovely little film with it.
that's fucking awful.
Right.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, sorry, we will pay for the therapy if you want to send us the bill.
I don't support
whatever
hitting
that was.
wives. That's very important to point out.
Just,
If anybody is in an abusive relationship, please seek help. It's a very serious matter.
if you or anyone
I'm
you
not joking.
if you or anyone you know has been affected by the issues raised in this podcast, just Google help as quick as you can, and you can stop listening. It's grand. It's all over. Ladies and gentlemen, were you at Dublin Comic Con this weekend? Did you enjoy it? What did you get up to? Please get in touch with us. If you were anyone who gave us an interview at Dublin Comic Con, thank you very, 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 very much. It was nice to meet some of the people that we've had on the podcast. Barry Keegan. It was great to meet a long-time listener of the podcast, Crom.
You met Cron.
Yeah, we met Crom.
I've known Cron for years, so it wasn't
Yeah,
that
it
exciting.
wasn't that exciting for him, but it was exciting for me to put a face to the name. Thank you very much for anyone who came out and had a chat with us. If you would like to get in touch with us, or if you would like to see any of our media, our content, our things, take a look at seomrabeag.com. That's seomrabeag.com.
It's the Irish word for small room.
It's the Irish word for small room. Don't open your mouth. I can see you over there. Stay the hell away from it. We are on Instagram at Michaelandbenjaminspodcast.
I would like to hear the joke. I would like to hear whatever joke he was going to make.
I was just going to call it Tiny Talks.
Yes.
No, that's not funny. Keep your mouth shut.
Bye, everybody.
No, hold on. Say thanks to Shane and tell people where there's no collecting issues.
Look, Shane's bloody great. Shane came out. He drove us all over the place. He kept me in check because I'm a moody little bitch at Comic Cons. And it was
for being on this.
it was very good of it.
podcast.
Also,
Just in general.
sorry. Thank you to Shane for coming on
He's
the podcast
guest, remember?
and having a chat with us again for the second week in a row. Also, there will be no collecting issues this Wednesday because we've been very busy with Comic Con.
We're at Comic Con, Ben.
Yeah, it's very bloody busy. Right?
Yeah, back next week.
Right, yeah, it'll be back. It'll be back next week. We will be doing our next issue of Collecting Issues in 2 weeks or next week.
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now. We will be announcing it tomorrow. So we will talk to you soon, ladies and gentlemen. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.